I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be. Life with no distractions. We'll get away. This is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's go, let's be free with
All right, and we're back for another week, another episode of the No Fear Investing Show. Michael McKenzie, and is that okay? Should I call you Michael or Mike? Who calls you
You can
Michael?
call me whatever you want. I've been called worse.
Mike McKenzie, Nathan Amaral, good to be back here. Who calls you Michael? Does anybody like call you Michael in your life?
It was usually my parents when I was in trouble.
Michael.
Yeah.
Who would yell your name more? Your mom's or your dad?
Probably my mom.
Your mom.
Yeah.
Michael. Like that. One of
Yeah.
those.
But I was a saint.
I don't want to bring back those memories of all those times. You were a saint. No, you weren't. Come on. What's the most trouble you got into as a kid?
Oh my gosh, the statute of limitations should be out.
Statute of limitations.
I'll tell you one,
Right.
and because at least this is my real estate group of people, so I can tell this.
Right.
We got bust. We were underage drinking. The only time I've ever drank in my life, and we went to this teen club, and my buddy and I thought it would be cool to climb up on this police car and pee on it. Yeah, that didn't go over real well. He got caught. I did run, but parents eventually found he'd sung like a daggone bird. And that's probably one of the things that stick out.
Did you get caught though? Did you get caught?
Yeah, and then stupid me, I tried to destroy the alcohol evidence. I threw it in an empty garbage can. How stupid is that? And my mom's like, this is the only thing in there. What do you mean you don't know how it got there? I don't know.
That's funny. That's funny. I think speaking of cars, I think one of the most worst things I've ever done with cars though is we were at wedding. We would go to anytime we'd go to weddings. I had this little clique of guys that I used to hang out with. So we would see each other pretty often, whether it was like a birthday party or a wedding. So we did this thing at weddings, and there was quite a few of them in the course of a year, sometimes 3 or 4. Anyway, whenever we'd meet, we'd go in the parking lot and we would look. I don't know if you remember this. We'd look for the air caps that had like skull heads or spinning dice.
Yeah.
We'd twist them off and we'd collect them. And then we would barter trade them. So we'd say, oh, I'll trade you this one for that one. And look what I found. So you would have a whole lot full of 100 cars, 150 cars. So yeah, we'd spin them off and then we'd, shuffle them around and then, we'd take air caps,
Well, it's funny. Disney took that and kind of made a big $1 million business because they have Disney pins. It's not the air cap things.
Oh, okay.
But people trade them. My kids used to trade them. You go through the park and you would trade them with other cast members or with other people you pass. Maybe y'all should have done that. Maybe y'all should have got a necklace of them and walked around.
We should have done something with them. All we were doing on the low level was trading the skull head for the die or whatever we had. That was what we did. Anyway, it's very interesting. You're pissing on cars. Anyway, welcome to the No Fear Investing Show. As you can tell, Michael and myself had no fear growing up. We just went out there and either pissed on cars or took parts off. But welcome to the No Fear Investing Show. This is the place where we like to help you, aspiring real estate investors, either get started, answer questions that you have. share with you insights on helping you like clear the fog, like mental clarity on getting started in real estate investing. So if you ever have any questions or you want to get started, you could probably click a link somewhere in the description or something like that, or a link below. And also you can either reach right out to us right here on a social media, wherever we're being watched. Mike, we're like streamed all over the place. We got a few new members watching us. We got Bellion. Sorry, Bellion. Sorry, he copied his name twice.
Yeah.
And we got a few other people out there watching. Thanks so much. By the way, chime in and say hello in the comments if you're here, or if you're new, post new in the comments. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about short-term rentals. It's kind of like the topic of discussion. Mike and I had, I don't even know. I lost track of how many meetings we had today. But
a lot.
we had quite a few meetings, and short-term rentals came up multiple times. Mike, so tell us a little about, I know, I don't know if most of our members know, but I've been doing short-term rentals for quite some time. And Mike, you've either done short-term rentals in the past, or you're looking at some new properties. Why don't you share a little bit about what's on the table for you?
Yeah, so you obviously are one that kind of turned me on to it, just looking at what you've got. I've done rentals in the past, but it's just been the regular, lease tenant type rentals. And I'll be honest, I hate that.
Yeah.
I do. Unless, but back then I tried to handle it myself too. I should have gave it to agency to do. But the short-term rentals, there's a couple things that interest me on it. You have somebody in there obviously for a very short period of time, week, 2 weeks, whatever, month. And it's flipping a lot. And to me, it's just a cool thing to get into, depending on where short-term rentals, can be about anywhere. We're looking at, some coastal areas and stuff. It's just a neat opportunity to get more properties. Now, I will tell you, Nathan, I've already had to come to Jesus meeting with April on this. So we were looking at one property, another property, and she's like, "Yeah, man, well, I could go down there and say, no, we have a place to beach. This is about money. You're not even to step foot on this property, because if you do, we lose money."
Well,
I do like the aspect of it.
I got a question for you. So your property's down at the beach. Do you do any short-term rentals right now with those, or you don't? So they're just
too much personal stuff in them.
Too much personal stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm in them too much.
Yeah, that's true. You're like down there like freaking a few times a week or something like that, or it seems that way.
I'll be there next Monday during this call.
Oh, really? Is next Monday?
Yeah.
All right. One of the things that I have noticed sometimes with a lot of people who have these properties or personal properties, they do have personal items in there, which we can talk about that. Oh, hey, what's up, Mike? Michael Fleck, the other Mike.
Hey.
So, a lot of people have, personal property in them. So in this case, first, let's just kind of break down the difference for those who are watching or curious about what's the difference, long-term, short-term. So really brief, short-term rental is typically where people rent for a shorter period of time. They're not getting into like a 6-month contract or a 1-year lease, anything like that. Right? So these are people who are either vacationing, or they're in a city maybe for a period of time. They could be traveling for work, or they're just need a place to stay because they're whatever. They got something going on. Maybe they're relocating or whatever. So short-term rentals are typically like less than 6 months. What's been more common than ever before, or made these more popular, is the famous app called Airbnb. However, prior to Airbnb, this has already been done through companies like HomeAway and VRBO and Short-Term Rental Stay. And there's so many other platforms out there that have been going on. But Airbnb has kind of become the Kleenex, like to tissues. Airbnb is the short-term rentals. It's become that household name that people just reference when it comes to short-term rentals. So on the other side of that is the long-term stay. Long-term stay meaning someone, pretty much everybody knows this one, where you have a renter in there for 6 months or a year. They move in, they're looking to bring their own furniture, for example, and they live there for, a longer period of time. They either typically pay month to month on a 6-month term, or 1-year lease agreement, and they'll pay every month, typically with a security deposit, where the opposite of that, and a short-term rental, is they're using a platform and paying a set amount that the platform typically decides along with the host, and the platform gets their cut. So it's their marketing fee gets taken out of that. So I just wanted to share that in case someone's wondering, like, what is a short-term rental and what about it, and how it works. So basically, they're bringing you the customer. The platform is bringing you the customer. So
Well, short-term rentals has evolved a lot too, Nathan, because I think back, for example, we have some condos in one area. If I let that, it used to be the only way before social media and stuff. If you wanted to rent them out, either you had a poster up at, in a break room somewhere, advertising in a newspaper, or the management company within that resort handled it.
True. Yeah.
Well, they get anywhere from 50 to 60% of your rent too. So if you, lease it out for $2,000 for a week, they're taking $1,000+ of your money. With Airbnb, HomeAway, and all that. It opened up to where the owner can, put their property on that platform, but not get eat up in fees.
Yeah.
And plus, when you book one, I was educating my son a little bit on it. I said, he's like, what about cleaning fees and all that? So if you look, when you book it, that's additional things. It's this much a month or a night, but then you've got the other fees on top of it. So it's made it more user friendly, I guess, for people to get into that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like with the power of technology and the ease of use on mobile apps and stuff like that, it makes it a lot easier for people to make the alternative option of a stay rather than a hotel and into someone's home doing a short-term rental. That's made another dent in the industry for short-term rentals. But I also think it opens the door for experiences, like new experiences. Like some people don't want to stay in a hotel now, maybe because of COVID reasons. Some people just say, you know what, instead of me being in a hotel with a whole bunch of other people, maybe I can get a house for the same amount of price down the road, or an apartment, and have more space. So not many hotels have the flexibility of having like a whole kitchen in it and all that stuff, depending on the brand you're at. So I think, it provides more opportunity for people, puts more inventory in the marketplace for short-term rentals. And the technology has been really the booster for that.
And generally for the consumer, it's an opportunity for them to rent a nice place at a below market value versus some of the hotels and stuff that if they checked into, they're going to pay as much, if not more, for a lot less space. Yeah. So it's an opportunity for the consumer also to take advantage.
That's true. Yeah, it's given like the average person, the homeowner, the second house homeowner, the opportunity to earn a revenue stream, just like Uber has done with cars. They've created the opportunity to create a revenue stream for someone, or Toro has done with renting out your car to someone directly. That's a better option, I guess I could say. You can rent out your own.
You can do that on Lyft now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I noticed that tab on the Lyft app the other day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so I guess it puts more power into people's hands, in doing that. I think one of the things, let's talk a little bit about pros and cons to long-term and short-term stay. You've had some long-term stays, so why don't we talk about the pros and cons of that?
Yeah. Well, pros is it's if you have a good renter in place, it's steady income every month. You're having to market every month and your income's not fluctuating. It is what it is every month. That's a pro to it. A con is if you have somebody that's a slow pay or you need to evict someone, it's a process. It's going to cost you more money to get them out, and there could be damage. You would know better than I would, but my experience in talking to people, short-term rentals, there may be a little bit of damage, but it's not. It's just use of the property type damage. It's not, holes in walls and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I have learned a few good lessons in regards to short-term rentals, and I've been doing short-term rentals now probably over 5 years. It's interesting because I do short-term rentals in 3 different countries now. Wow, that's so interesting. Anyway.
We were international now.
No, yeah, I never said it out loud. So what I've realized and learned along the way is, for example, in Uganda, I'm not going to rent out a short-term stay for anything less than 5 days. And typically, because someone who wants to rent from a Wednesday to a Sunday, or just on the weekend, is pretty much going to have a party, right? So I had to
Right.
learn that the hard way, because in the beginning I was like, oh, someone wants to stay for 3 nights, let's do it, right? And that was a learning experience. And
Yeah, that's
then
true.
yeah. So I think it's just about like knowing and trying and testing out the business model. Um, the other thing, like with short-term rentals, is just to consider. There's like pros and cons. So yes, the pros are you can turn revenue more than you would with a long-term. So a long-term stay, it's like a steady income stream, and it's that rent steadily coming in all the time. With short-term stay, you can turn a property and earn higher return, but the cons to that is two things. One, getting the next tenant in quick enough so that you can turn that velocity of money to increase the revenue. And then the other side of that is there is much more management going on. So if someone is not management savvy or doesn't enjoy management in any capacity, well, you're going to feel like you're pulling your hair out. Like that's literally what it's going to feel like. I think it's important to like find a good team. That's something that in the beginning when we started, it was we started multiple ways actually. First of all, we've hired out a property management company here on the island. That was taking about 30% of revenue. Then in the Uganda, it was about, what were we doing? Before we were taking most of the revenue, but then we brought in a manager. So that was taking a portion of that. Then we brought in an accountant, a part-time accountant to manage, income and all that stuff. And that was more cut in revenue, but we didn't have to do all the management. And then the stuff in the U.S. is mostly managed either by myself or, stuff in Uganda myself and get those done. But it also, you got to have a cleaning staff. You got to make sure the whole property. So that's a little bit about the pros and cons of the short-term side is, marketing, getting the next tenant in, cleaning, anything breaks, stuff like that. I mean, Mike, have you ever faced or had a really bad tenant and maybe you couldn't get out of a property or messed up a property really bad?
Yeah, I've had some. I've not had horror stories like some folks, but yeah, I've had tenants that unfortunately I've had to evict a couple. But overall, my experience has been pretty good. I actually had one lady. I would go visit her. She was an older lady, and if I wasn't there like on the third to collect her rent, she was calling to make sure I was still alive. And every month I was, hoping she was still alive to pay the rent.
Yeah.
Um, but she's just a sweet lady. Stayed there forever. I can tell you what, my parents, had rental property, and one of their properties, beside one of their rental houses, there was another rental house that wasn't ours. It was owned by another guy. The renter in that place stayed there. I kid you not, Nathan, 45 years.
Wow.
Do you know how many times he paid for that house?
Multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, I was great. I mean,
Yeah, that's amazing.
but can you imagine? That's like unheard
That's
of. But
that's so crazy. I don't think I've ever heard a number that high to my recollection. I haven't heard a number that high.
yeah,
That's amazing.
it's amazing.
I think the most I've ever heard was probably in the 30s, like someone who rented a place in 30 years, and that might have been in Massachusetts. Um, there is an advantage to that. Even someone renting long term, you can have properties with less issues, less maintenance, and I would say that just depends on the type of person and also the maybe the age that they're at. For example, if you're renting to, if you're doing what do you call those co-ed, or student dorms, right?
Yeah,
Stuff like that. There's people out there who do it. There are people out there who do it, but guess what you can expect? Maybe, cheaper furniture, of course, but you can expect parties on the weekends, uh, stuff breaking a lot more. And then you have let's go to the other extreme where if you're renting out to, seniors, it's not that much. It's, you're not going to expect, wild parties on the weekends, so I think it just depends on what you feel comfortable with, and and then depending on it also if you're going to manage it yourself. And
Yeah.
like you said, you had a bad experience with that because you were managing them yourself at the time,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Well, you bring up a good point. You talk about stages of life that people are in, and also generation. We like to look at generation stuff, and I feel old when I say this, but the generation now are not as interested in home ownership as past generations.
True.
It's not the American dream, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
as much. And the reason is not that they don't want a nice place to live; they just don't want the responsibility and the maintenance and the upkeep. And to be quite honest, as a homeowner, I get that sometimes,
Mm,
especially when I have to fix something on my own house.
yeah.
So I get that, or somebody that travels a lot, or if they're older in life, they don't want the maintenance of keeping up stuff, but they want their own place. It's an
Mm.
opportunity for those type of folks too.
Yeah, that's so true. What you bring up an important part about the younger generation maybe not renting where they live and renting where they live and then owning what they rent. The the difference in what I've seen, even in apps like Airbnb, I don't know if you have it downloaded on your phone or whatnot, but like I'm looking at it now. I usually have the hosting version on, but I just switched it to the traveling version. And I'm looking here, there's a tab right here that says live anywhere, right? And that's part of this
It's
mentality
true.
is like, hey, let's live anywhere. So that immediately captured me. Here's another thing which a lot of people are not realizing, that's up and coming into the world. It's just part of the next generation. Is the next generation lives for experiences. They would rather pay for an experience than to get or put that down payment on their house or to, whatever they're saving up for to get the nicer car, that whatever it may be, they're actually investing their money on experiences. So when you go into Airbnb, they've really targeted this more than everybody else. You can go to VRBO, you can go to booking.com, you're going to find your car rentals, I don't even know if booking.com does flights, I can't remember, but you're going to find your
Yeah, I
stays, your
think they do.
accommodation. Yeah, they're finding
Yeah.
like the basics of accommodations and travel and stuff. But Airbnb took it a bit further because they know their demographic. They went a little bit further and they said, you know what? We're going to give you experiences. We're going to give you live in person experiences, online experiences, right? And then a whole bunch more. I mean, literally with Airbnb now, locally, I'm just pulling up something here locally, I guess. I mean, I can go for a night in the thermal pools and a food experience person for $77 a person, right?
Wow.
I could do a full day tour on the west side of the island for $77 a person, right? So now I can buy experiences through Airbnb. Why? Because this is something that's very important for a lot of people who are doing short-term rentals. It's not just about renting out your house. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the boat on short-term rentals. You have to create an experience. It's not just, oh, like check out my place, live here because it's cheaper than everywhere else. That's not the selling point anymore. There is a great show on Netflix, Mike. You might want to check this out. It's called Stay Here. And I forget who the people are, okay? But these two co-hosts, man and a woman, they tour all over the world and they look at these Airbnbs, and the guy comes in and talks about marketing the Airbnb, and it's so powerful, like his marketing strategy and techniques. But he makes it a very impactful parts, and he says, listen, there are just like there's going to be many other people as your competition, but what makes yours stand out? What are they going to experience while
Right.
they're staying at your place? And that's really the difference. That's, compared to hotel stays, right? That's where a lot of people might miss the boat, and Airbnb is, latching right onto that pretty well. So,
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up because I had a discussion about that. We're looking at two particular properties right now, and that's going through my head. In the area they're in, there's multiple short term rentals. That's all it is. There's thousands of them. How am I going to differentiate? And one of mine is a smaller unit.
mhm.
Well, mine's got golf carts.
Yeah.
If you want to rent a golf cart in that place, it's 400, $500 a month or a week.
Mm,
If I include that into my price, I could get a little bit more per night,
right.
but they've got a golf cart at their leisure.
Right.
It's just things to set you apart. Um,
Exactly.
and I tell you another thing you brought up in our mastermind meeting today that I had not thought of. Anytime you're talking about rather long-term rentals, short-term rentals, those are what we're called buy and hold. You buy them and hold on to them. You're not
Yeah.
flipping them, that
Right.
sort of thing. So, it takes capital to do that. But there's also, I believe you call it master lease or subleasing
Right.
type, where you don't necessarily own the property,
Correct.
but you may have a sublease on it, and you're using the Airbnb while you're basically paying rent yourself on it.
Right. Yeah, I mean the term I think came out of the I don't know couponing industry or something like that. They call it arbitrage or whatever. And
Yeah.
basically, but on the real estate legal side of it, it's you could do a master lease or a lease agreement, and it's the opportunity where people have properties all over the place where it's their second home. So let's take yourself for example. You have your second home and maybe it's never crossed your mind about renting it out, and
Right.
you're busy being a barber, okay, and
Yeah,
all
I'm
of a
not in the
sudden,
real estate world.
yeah, you're
Yeah.
not in real estate, and someone sends you a letter, or and says, hey, I have an opportunity. We're looking to rent your property. It's fully furnished, obviously, because it's a second home for
Yep.
you. So, hey, would you be interested in making more money during this tough time of COVID? Have you considered this option, right? Of, we'll work with you. We'll handle everything. You don't have to, and your biggest, concern is dealing with tenants and issues and all that stuff. So if this letter or this marketing piece presents itself and says, hey, we'll handle all that, you just collect the money. We'll do all the management. We'll check them in, check them out, manage everything. Boom, full service. And basically, the term for this is property management. Most people think property management is you just bring someone in and they manage all your apartments. But it actually, property management is even on the rental space for short-term rentals. So you bring in a property management company, they can handle, short-term stays. And, it's an offer you can present to people. There are so many people who have second homes, investment properties, or sometimes they'll have a small apartment complex. They may have 10 units or 5 units, and it's locality, like in the location. Maybe they're only getting, let's say, $500, or I mean, that's kind of a far fetch these days, but let's say they're just saying getting $1,000 a month, right? So let's say they're
Right.
getting $1,000 a month, but their location, they don't realize that if they turned all those units into short-term stays because of the location, they could be earning, $3,000 a month. So
Right.
that's another opportunity. Sometimes people don't know the value they have, with the property, or they went into long-term stay because they didn't want to deal with the headache.
Right.
So that's another option too. A lot of people can tackle that angle and take over a property for a current homeowner. And there's ways to do that. It's a matter of just talking to the owners and seeing what they're willing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's definitely a neat thing. And we've all learned through COVID that you don't necessarily need a brick and mortar office. So I think a lot of
Right.
companies are realizing that too, which gives their employees more freedom to travel with their families and experience, like you said, have those experiences. As long as they have their computer with them, they can still work.
Yeah.
But travel the world, see the world, whatever it may be, and make money. Well, you're a prime example. Obviously, you're in real estate and you
Hmm.
manage your own short-term rentals. But you spend half the year in one country, half the year in another. But
Yeah.
when you're not in that other country, you're making money on that
Right.
property that you were in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. And that's um, I just to be real and be realistic. That's not something I even recommend to just anybody doing. Like you
Right.
start slow. Like remember when we first met, um, or maybe a year after we first met, I was actually doing my first virtual remote properties. Like I was
Yeah.
living in the state, but investing 4 hours away, never being in the property. Then it was like,
Right.
oh, if I did that 4 hours away and never stepping into it, maybe I could do it a state over and then 3 states over and 5 states over. let me do it across the pond, you know?
Yeah, let me do an ocean over. Yeah.
Yeah, let me throw an ocean in there. And that does take time, but start with people comfortable at. And Mike, I want to make something
Right.
clear because I know some people are, some people that are watching right now are probably thinking, well, this sounds good, but I don't know how to get into it, and I don't have the money, and I don't have money to buy property, or I don't know how to do this arbitrage and master lease and all this stuff. Here's the reality of it. If you're even thinking about getting started in real estate, we don't even recommend starting this way. It's just a topic of conversation that's kind of top of mind for Mike and I right now. But we don't recommend starting this way. We have a philosophy where we teach you to get started from the ground up. And we literally mean the ground, like the land. And learning like how to buy real estate right from the ground and then work your way up through real estate deals. There's so many people, you probably heard us talk about it on our show multiple times. We work with you to help you get to 25 deals. That's the whole goal. And there's so many people in our group that are doing that. We've had so many people, let's call it, graduate from the program and move on to other strategies of real estate. We have just recently, we had one of our members, Donald, who just crossed that line, and he's probably on his 34th deal by now. I think it was like a week ago. He was at 27 and he's probably over 30 by now. There's so many people, but there's so many people who've never got their first offer done or sent their first mailing or made their first offer, got to something on their contract for the first time. Yeah. So if that's something that you're interested in, you want to learn how to do, what I recommend you do is reach out to us or click on the link in the description and get started with us and find out how you can get started in real estate investing, maybe create a second income for yourself and maybe transition that into a primary income for yourself. But it's really exciting. Mike, I think it's some of my favorite, the favorite group and chat that we have, I think, is our Fearless Millionaire members, which is so cool.
Wow, yeah. It's awesome group. Yeah. There's nothing, you can't describe it unless you're in that group. There's no words to describe how cool it is. I mean, I can tell people about it, but I don't do it justice.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's a good way it's definitely a good way to start the day. So if that is, like I said, if that's you or you're considering either getting started in real estate, let us know. You can do that by clicking on one of the links. But until next time, that's about it for today, Mike. We've hit the crest of our time slot. Yeah. So until next time, everybody, thanks so much for joining in, and we will see you next week right here on the No Fear Investing Show. See ya.
See ya.